Now I'm going to step into the next Title I program. It's called Agriculture Risk Coverage, and it's essentially two programs, but it operates in some similar ways, but also has some very unique aspects to it. Again, this one is administered by FSA. Like PLC, or PLC is a commodity price determined program. ARC is a revenue, so it includes price and yield for each covered commodity. Covers a portion of losses in revenue for a covered commodity relative to a revenue guarantee. How you calculate that revenue guarantee is what really differentiates the program. As mentioned, you have two different choices. You have ARC County and ARC Individual. ARC County, again, is a commodity by commodity decision. ARC Individual, all the covered commodities in that FSA farm are covered by that policy. You can't opt out for individual commodities. So again, step through some quick terminology. Benchmark revenue is the product of Olympic average yields and Olympic average national or substituted reference prices. I'll go through an example of that in a second. We have the ARC guarantee is 86% of benchmark revenue, whether it's individual farm or county level benchmark revenue. ARC payments occur when actual revenue falls below benchmark revenue. Payment rate is determined after calculating the difference between ARC guarantee and actual revenue, but it cannot exceed 10%. So basically the most amount of coverage you can get is 76 to 86% of what your anticipated revenue is. Your payment amounts are based on payment acres, so percentage of your base acres and generic base acres. So for the first component of the ARC programs is the county level ARC. This is one where, like PLC, it's selected on a commodity by commodity basis. It's paid on 85% of base acres, which is the same as PLC as well. Covers revenue loss between 76 and 86% of benchmark county revenue. And this is something that you have to distinguish between the county and the individual revenue. And it's triggered by a loss in revenue at the county level. So again, it's not attached to losses at the farm level. Benchmark county revenue is the product of county Olympic average yields and national Olympic average prices. So again, it goes back to these marketing year average prices. Where are they going to be? Where have they been in the past? Olympic averages are three-year averages after omitting the high and the low over a 5-year period. Benchmark revenue is a moving calculation for the most 5 recent years. So for example, 2016 will be based on 2011 through 2015 crop years. Olympic average price calculations use the higher of the market year average price and the reference price. I'll show how that goes through. Final prices are determined after the conclusion of the marketing year. So again, payments aren't going to be made until after that marketing year ends up closing. Reference prices are the same price that are used in the PLC program. And it will allow separate irrigated and non-irrigated county yield guarantees where available. So this right here is just a quick example of how the Olympic average price calculation will end up occurring. So for each one of these commodities, soybeans, corn, and wheat, you have your reference price, so your 840, the reference price for corn 370, reference price 550. So when you end up having a marketing year average price that's lower than the reference price, you use the reference price in the calculation. So for example, in the soybeans, since the marketing year average price was never lower than the reference price, you use the 2009 through 2013, this is an estimate still, and you drop the low, so 959, and the high, 1440, take an average of the remaining 3 years, you get an Olympic average of 1227. So for corn, since you're substituting your reference price, which is higher than your marketing year average price, you do the same calculation, only you drop this low, which is the 370, and you end up dropping the high, and take an average of those 3 years. If this 518 would have been a 354, you would substitute in the 370, and that would actually go into your calculation as one of those 3 years. Applies the same thing for wheat. You have your reference price versus what your marketing year average price is, and use the higher of the two, and drop the high and the low. And that's what ends up giving you the 528 or the 660 And you can see this number right here, based on where we are right now. Obviously, there's a lot of time left or going into this production year, but that price right now looks really good compared to where prices are and where they could potentially go. So there's some room in here. Now, as you start dropping these years out, since this is a 5-year decision, you start dropping 2010, 2011, and when you lose that 2012 one, you might get some payments early on under this program, but they could fall up on the back end. Now, again, this depends on when or where you think some of these prices are going to go, and there's a lot of variability. It could end up changing. You could end up having prices get back up over the life of this 5-year farm bill. So just a quick calculation, very simplified. You take Olympic County average corn yield from 2009 to 2013, estimated at 156 bushels per acre. Olympic average national price, I'm going to use that 528 that we calculated on the last screen. Benchmark revenue is 156 times 528 gives you $824 per acre. Your revenue guarantee is the 824 times the 86% guarantee, so 708. But your payment rate cannot exceed that 10% because you're only covering a band between 76 and 86%, so it cannot exceed 8240 as far as your payment. So if your actual county yield is 170 bushels per acre, so it's 14 bushels higher, and your marketing year average price is $4, your actual county revenue is 170 times 4 is 680. Your actual crop county revenue is less than the revenue guarantee. Your payment is 708, which is your guarantee, minus 680 or $28 per acre. Cannot exceed 8240 plus your other payment restrictions, such as Jason indicated with 125,000 and 250,000 per couple, still ends up applying. But your payment amount is based on 85% of your base acres. So 85% times 28 gives you a payment per base acre of $23.80 per acre. This is the last program I'm going to quickly talk about is the benchmark revenue under the individual farm. This one, like I said, once you enroll one covered commodity, all of them end up going in there. You can't pick and choose. PLC and ARC, you can go back and forth. You can do one in corn and PLC. You can do ARC for soybeans and wheat. You can end up making those choices. This one, they're all. It's a measure of a moving average of the most 5 recent years. This is one of the big differences. It's based on 65% of your base and generic base acres. So the other two are based on 85%. Again, it pays between 76 and 86% of revenue, so it's a shallow loss type program, if you will, where you end up looking at, again, a 5-year Olympic rolling average. Benchmark revenue changes as annual planted acreage changes. Again, this is another one where it's different than the other 2 programs, and your reference price substitution for marketing year average price is the same as for the ARC County program. So just to step through a quick example, and this one's really simplified because this is a very complicated method to end up calculating. If you assume an FSA farm has 100 total base acres and no generic base, in 2014 the farm planted 70% soybeans or 30% corn, so 70 acres of soybeans and 30 acres of corn. Your Olympic average revenue is estimated at $650 per acre for soybeans and $750 for corn. And that Olympic average is, again, calculated by farm yield, not county, farm yield, times your Olympic average national price or reference price. So your prices are still based on that marketing year average or reference price. Your benchmark revenue is $650 times your 70%. So what your anticipated, or what your average Olympic revenue is, $650 times 70% plus $750, which is your corn, at 30%, because that's what you ended up planting that year, gives you an average revenue of $680 per acre. If you had another commodity in there, you would still end up having your proportion or your percentage add to 100%. So you could add in wheat, but it would have to come out of one of these other commodities. Your revenue guarantee, again, you take your 680 times by 86, gives you 86%, gives you $585 per acre. In 2014, if the farm produces 50 bushels per acre for soybeans and 170 bushels per acre for corn, and marketing year average prices are $10 and $4 for soybeans and corn respectively, your actual revenue is 50 bushels per acre times your $10 times your 70% again, and for corn it's 170 times your $4 times 30% gives you revenue of $554 an acre. Your payment rate is the $585 revenue guarantee plus the $554 actual is $31. Again, it may not exceed what that maximum 10% is of the $680 or $68, and your payment per base acre is $31 times your base acreage of coverage, which is 65, not the 85 in the other two programs. So your payment per acre is $20.15.